And the basic point of having a government is to protect your citizens.
That's right.
I mean, that's at the basic level. If you're not doing that, you get an F. You are failing.
Donald Trump needs to be the president the left is afraid of. He needs to be the president that the left has been saying, oh, no, Donald Trump is going to do this. All lawfully, all within the law, but he needs to exercise the power of the executive.
But it doesn't matter. There's no off-ramp. When the Democrats weaponized the DOJ to go after Donald Trump, and now you have John Bolton, who's not a Democrat, but he's a uniparty establishment, he's a neocon guy, calling explicitly for the weaponization of the DOJ because they're panicked. Trump says, we're going to go after the corruption. And the immediate response is, oh, no, Trump is weaponizing the government against us. There's no reality where either Trump and the Republicans just bow down and say, we're going to do nothing, and the Democrats continue their lawfare and seek to destroy this country, or Trump says, we're putting a stop to it. They stand up and scream, he's a fascist.
Yes.
So either we defend this country and the Democrats go insane, or we do nothing and the Democrats go insane. Either way, the left is seeking to burn everything down.
Yeah. We got to weed out the poison, as they say. We've got to dilute the poison, and it is poisonous. They're very poisonous. They're very...
You know, I was watching this morning the opening statement on the Lake and Riley trial.
Oh, yeah.
And I was just so grateful this trial was happening. It's on the morning news, and they were playing it in full. And I'm like, this is the importance of what our founding fathers understood in having trials.
That's right.
It's why we had Nuremberg.
That's right.
So that you can publicize and show everybody and have that person sit there as the evidence is presented against them to prove what they've been doing.
That's right.
The best possible outcome is going to be when Trump calmly and reasonably sends the DOJ, the FBI, or otherwise, that's been reformed, to arrest people, perp walk, sit them down and say, here's everything they did and why they did it. Right. And then a jury of their peers will have to go, yeah, they did that. Oh, yeah. Guilty. And then they can go to jail for crimes they committed.
That's right.
When we can prove crimes were committed.
That's right.
It was funny because I said this several months ago, and they tried to turn it into... They lie about everything. They say that Tim is calling for extrajudicial actions.
Yes, exactly.
No. We want everything under the law, calm, reasonable, nonviolent, just a guy in a jacket arresting a guy and saying you broke the law.
That's right.
Yeah.
And they did. I mean, there are laws they broke.
Yes.
Joe Biden in his documents. How about that one?
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
and
incredible.
also people to tell the truth.
That's right.
And that's why, see, you all, what you're doing here today is dangerous, right? That's why they're afraid of people like James O'Keefe, Charlie Kirk, everything else. They're starting to talk about it a little bit more on the news. Like, oh my goodness, they're getting the word out there. They're mobilizing their people. No, they're just simply telling the truth. But see, if people cannot hear the truth, they can't take actions to protect themselves, their families, or go vote. Yeah. So, this is alarming. That's alarming. I hadn't seen that clip.
Yeah, that's it is. And they're not gonna stop.
No.
It's like a scared cat in the corner. They're cornered right now, but they're dangerous. That's a dangerous animal. So it is very, we all have to stay on our toes and be aware of what's going to happen.
Right. And listen to
but we
voices.
have great people like yourselves and Mike talks about digital soldiers and people, critical thinking. We got to get that, back with kids and go find the research. If you have a question about somebody, you tell something, Tim, to your audience that you give factual, go find out yourself and go research that information and get both sides, get the whole picture. Critical thinking, it's really important.
I want to ask you about Europe and the international component of this.
Yeah.
I went to, this is about 6 years ago, I went to France. And I went and met with a bunch of the refugees, quote unquote. They're economic migrants, but they call them refugees. And I saw this, and I went to Athens. And in both circumstances, the people who were there said they were tricked, they were lied to, and they wish they never came. So I've got a video from France where they said, just don't film our faces. So I point the camera down at their feet. I'm in front of this refugee camp, and I said, are you happy here? And they said, no, they lied to us.
Yeah.
They told us all these things. They tricked us. We came on this difficult journey, and now we're suffering. It's cold. We have nothing. Why did they lie to us? I went to Athens. They said the exact same thing. We were told by these NGO groups, they were jobs for us, that the programs were open, the government was letting people in to live a better life. We come here, they tell us that's not true, and now all we can do is sell drugs in the street.
Yeah.
Why are we here?
Yeah.
And so what is it that we're seeing this weird mass migration component in Europe and the United States? Clearly, I mean, when you see that the U.S. has a similar program going on, open the border, let them come in, and then in Europe, you see this. The first thing I'll say is the only reason they weren't happening at the same time is because Trump won the presidency.
Right.
But now, as soon as the Biden gets in with Harris, the border's wide open.
Goes back, yeah. And they start to do the New World Order agenda, which is a World Economic Forum. That's another word for the New World Order. It's the World Economic. That's the same entity, and that's what their whole thing is, to move like digital currency. In China, everybody, you get shut down, you can't use your cards and all that, digital. So it's all a move to be this globalist, and even the Vatican talks about one world religion, so it's all this big move to global, and they have to take America into that. That's their biggest thing, is to take us into the rest of the world and make everything, so they can control everybody.
Yeah,
it's
and it causes financial collapse,
Exactly,
right? Because
exactly.
look, butter is $7. Why is that?
Yeah.
Butter is $7 because we brought Venezuelans, and I love Venezuelans, right? But we have Tren de Aragua. They are terrorizing people. We brought them here.
Yeah.
And your tax dollars are funding their living, they're getting housing, they're getting all of these benefits that the taxpayer who's working is paying for. Right. So, I mean, I'm a fairly simple person. The basic point of having a government is to protect your citizens.
That's right.
I mean, that's at the basic level. If you're not doing that, you get an F. You are failing, right? You have to protect your citizens. And so what they have done is made, like you said, lured people here.
Yeah.
With you're going to have housing, you're going to have food, you're going to have all these benefits. It's going to be great. And people didn't realize what they were getting into. Well, the kids were telling us even.
Right. That's right.
The kids were like, oh my goodness, I was making $2. This was one of the cases in Austin. Real case. I mean, real kids telling us this. Well, I was making $2.50 a day on the coffee farm back in Guatemala. But my sponsor here, who was in Austin, Texas, he told me he's going to pay me $6 an hour if I come here to the United States. This child believes he's going to be Elon Musk rich, but he doesn't realize he's coming to be a slave. Yeah. They don't realize that. They can never get out of their debt bondage. The carnage, the death of people who've come on this journey, the rape of the women and children and men, boys and girls, it's horrific what's happened. I mean, people just don't realize. And so then you have people who are not able to work. They're getting all the handouts. And then what happens when that goes away? What's about to happen in New York right now when Mayor Adams says, we're not going to give you the money for food anymore?
He should shut those hotels down.
He's under
investigation
right?
But what's going to happen when they indicted
him. Yeah.
hundreds of thousands of people out on the streets? I'm just saying, what do they think is going to happen? But New York can't afford it. No city can afford it. And people are starting to wake up to the fact that, hey, wait a minute.
And the other thing is, you got to remember, to get this country to comply with the globalists, they have to dilute the American exceptionalist, the real American, by pouring in all these people, because they're not going to assimilate to our country, but that's the purpose, to get rid of the now we're like the minority, we're like the minority. The Americans are like the minority. So it's like flushing, pouring in to dilute us. And then they've destroyed the country. Then we're becoming more like Europe and all these other countries that have all this refugee, all this stuff going on. So it's a diluting of American people.
Yes, and I want to say something interesting too, because I don't know one Latino. Remember, my husband's from El Salvador. I don't know one who voted Democrat, not one. And people are trying to call my Latino friends racist, and many of the people who left their countries during war, like El Salvador, they've left Venezuela a long time ago. They've come here. They came from Cuba. They consider themselves Americans. they love this country.
Yeah.
They've worked hard for this country, to have the American dream. And they are not very happy with the government that is trying to, take all of their rights away, make them, when they're working so hard for their families, take all of their tax dollars and give it to other people. It wouldn't matter where on the globe these people are coming from. So the fact that people are trying to say that folks who don't want immigration, like Latinos, I don't know if you've been hearing that, they're calling Latinos racist.
Oh, yeah.
Against themselves.
Yeah.
Latinos are white supremacists. And I'm like, honey, did you
See,
know
they're
you
putting
were
them in a
white
category
supremacist?
with the way they've
But we
diluted.
can't let them play this game. And that's why what you're doing here on this podcast and what other people are doing are exposing the truth, as opposed to the constant lies that are coming from this legacy media that's nothing but the propaganda machine.
That's
and
exactly
anyway,
right.
I just wanted to throw that out there because they are trying to fundamentally change America, but so many people came here for the American dream, and they're mad because they can't have it. And it doesn't matter what your country of origin was.
Exactly.
10 years ago, people considered themselves Americans, and now they're trying to create these wars.
Yeah.
But I found out my husband, who's from El Salvador, is a racist.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Larry
He thinks
Elder
it's
is
funny.
The black face of white supremacy.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And let's talk about white people. So I come from Ireland. My ancestors are Irish. They were poor in New England. They came over. I mean, we were slaves. You got to understand. My grandparents, they were bought and paid for servitude. They didn't call them like what they called the black slaves, but they called them servitude because they're white. So it was easy for them to have like the white Irish they're living in their homes. So they would look like they were, they could rape them, they could buy their children, they could do whatever they wanted because they were white. You understand what I'm saying? Like and they were the first slave servitude to be put into this country because in England they tortured the Irish. They tortured. That was the problem between the Protestant, the North and the South, the Protestant, the Catholic. This is a faith, a religion war, and the whites are people. I mean, in Italy, because your skin is white doesn't mean that you're not being persecuted or you weren't being sold and bought, as a slave in this country, brought over here to this country. And all my relatives, all my ancestors were working for the millionaires, the blue blood, the English, the Vanderbilts, all the Drexels, all these big blue blood families, the Roosevelts, the Rothschilds, all of them. They lived in Newport. They were millionaires in those days, in the Gilded Age. And the Irish were their slaves, and they took advantage of all the women. They bought and sold the babies. They brought them over. I mean, the same stories go about the whites' skin. I'm talking about skin now. So because it was easy for them to get away with, because they were white. Do you understand? So it was easy for them to get away with torturing the Irish. And that's what happened in New England. In my hometown, the Irish were slaves. My grandmother worked for the millionaires. They tortured my grandmother. They treated them horrible. They were horrible. They took advantage of them all the time. They raped them. They took their babies. They had multiple children too. Multiple. And it was easy because they didn't have to tell, because their skin color was white, the same as them. So it's a historical thing when we talk about that. Every American back in the day when this country was founded came from a different culture, a different area of the world. That's why we came here, because we wanted to run from tyranny. Freedom was what we wanted, to worship what we wanted to do and not be under tyranny. And so we all have this kind of, great Americanism, American, stories about our cultures, but we got to get rid of this skin color and this kind of nonsense, because they're going after white people now. That's what they said about this win with Trump, that it was the white people.
Yeah.
It was the white people. Like, come on, stop.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon, so subscribe and come hang out.